Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. Today, in this episode, we are stepping out of the comfort zone and diving headfirst into the transformative power of risk and discomfort. And joining us is an adventurer, storyteller, and all around bold move maker, Adam Stuart. Listeners, Adam's journey spans continents, career leaps, and life changing adventures with his family, all rooted in a fearless embrace of the unknown. So get ready to laugh, reflect, and be inspired to create a life that's anything but ordinary. So, Adam, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute pleasure having you with us today.
Oh, what a pleasure to be here. That was quite an introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
Lovely, lovely, Adam. Okay, so let's start with your leap of faith. So, packing up your family and traveling the world, what inspired such a bold move, and what was the biggest lesson from that experience, Adam?
Oh, that's a great question. I am lucky enough to be blessed with 4 boys and a wife that's my best friend and life partner. And I think that it's been just part of our DNA of our family that living a little unconventionally and living on our own terms has been just really important to us. And this adventure, we took off in 2023 and we're gone for just under a year. And we traveled 18 different countries and only missed 2
Wow.
continents. But that was a long time coming. And your question about like what led to that, I think really was just a desire to follow our hearts, to follow just that adventurous spirit inside of us that for a long time we spent, intentionally, but really working to set money aside and to build, I hate to say this, but kind of a cookie cutter life, working a corporate job. I was in sales and worked into sales leadership and really enjoyed what I was doing, but also felt like we were working towards doing something that was a little more unconventional. And so really hit a wall in 2018 just being burned out with the travel demands of my job and seeing that my kids were growing up really fast. Like I said, I have 4 boys, and whether they were, boys or girls, I think it's important for me to set an example to them as well that we can do big things. We can do things out of the ordinary and go for it. And so that's really where that happened, where that, just out of that whole experience is where the idea came from, and how it all came together is right from there.
So inspiring. So inspiring. And Adam, you have said life happens outside the comfort zone. So can you share a story with all of us, where embracing discomfort, it led to a breakthrough or a transformative experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just talk personally. We can talk about family, some things that we learned as a family and have discussed since. But um, there comes a moment. I think that whatever big decision you're going to make, you actually have to take the action. And so we had set plenty of money aside. We had, we had moved things so that we were ready to go. We had sold almost all of our belongings. And I had to let my company know that I was going to be leaving. And this was all just kind of a process, that we had planned out. But to be honest, I hadn't done the big move that I knew would untether us so that we could do this. And so, I had set a date on my calendar of the day that I was going to let my director know that we were going to be leaving. And it's interesting of how much that moment meant to me, and how much like I hadn't actually made the phone call because I was maybe procrastinating a little bit, but just jumping in and actually having that conversation, that big scary conversation that would really formalize the fact that we were going to be leaving was really scary. And what I learned having that conversation is, and it's been confirmed over and over, is that there are really good people all around us. And the director that I had showed his human side and was so excited for me. And I hung up that phone and my heart's just pounding, and anybody that's worked in a corporation that they've worked really hard, to be successful in and to provide value to, just knows how much goes into your career.
Exactly.
And I get off the phone and I just remember being just a reflective state of this is a really big thing that I just did. And it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. And just it confirmed again that what we were doing and this plan that we had put in place was the right track.
Wow. Shout out to your director,
Right.
kind of you know, it happened because of them. So it's a really very inspiring, very beautiful moment you pictured in the answer. Uh,
He I read, there was just some humanness in how he answered. We were
exactly.
talking just literally about like what the next steps were in a project that we were working on. And I said, "Hey, Josh, before I before we get into that, can I talk to you about something else?" And so I told him, "Hey, I'm gonna I'm gonna send you my resignation. Here's what I'm doing." And what he said was just like, "Hold on a second. I just need a minute to process that." And
Yeah,
it was just so human of, okay, I wasn't expecting that today. And then it flipped on of, I am so excited for you. We'll figure out this work stuff, but I am so excited for you. So that it was just a very pleasant, scary experience all in one.
definitely, definitely. Wow. And also taking risks, they can feel exhilarating, yeah, but also terrifying, like you felt while making that phone call to Josh. So how do you personally evaluate when a risk is worth taking? And what advice do you have for those who are on the fence about taking their own leaps of faith?
Oh, I love that question. I've thought a lot about that. My personal experience with this situation, and I'll answer that kind of with a current situation that I'm in. But I had really reached a point that I realized that it wasn't sustainable to continue traveling and working just as hard as I was. That I needed to have some kind of a transition. And for me, that was the impetus to say, so if this isn't what I want forever, then what do I want? And so switching into a place where I gave myself some time to think about what that next step would be, what the dream would be. I
Uh-huh.
don't even just think just the next step, but really, really allowing yourself some space to dream. And that can look really different for anybody, but asking a genuine question to yourself and to your partner, to those that matter to you in your life, of what do we want to create in our lives. And for me at that point, the dream became, I want to do something where it's totally off the beaten path. I want to do something that is purely for me. It doesn't seem to make financial sense. Doesn't seem to make career path. It doesn't make sense in that method. But for me and my mental clarity and just my sense of adventure, this is what I want to do. And so, you can write all the pros and con lists. You can write T charts up as much as you want, which I did. I'm an analytical person, and so I've got the spreadsheets that I looked at all of this, and I think it matters to say that you're not going to put yourself in financial ruin. But it was also, the guiding force was, this really mattered to me, and it was worth doing because I could just feel, my heart, my internal self just saying, you've got to do this.
Makes sense. Also, Adam, you emphasize living with intention. So, how did intentionality guide your decisions during your travels and career transitions? How can listeners cultivate a more intentional approach to their own lives?
I think that has a lot to do with mindfulness and presence in the current moment. I think that we all live busy lives, and we realize that we're, like I said, we were lucky and fortunate to, over the course of about 11 months, to touch into 18 different countries. And one of the things I saw that is that people are busy everywhere, whether
Yeah.
they're busy gathering fruit for a fruit stand in Phuket, and just busy gathering and working like that, or a banker that's walking really briskly on the streets of Tokyo. People are busy. Life is busy. And I was busy getting on planes and traveling all over the United States for a corporate sales job. And the temptation there, or the trap that you can fall into, is you're worrying about performance that you may have just completed a year. You're thinking about past performance, or you're worried about future performance, and that gets you out of the moment. And so for me, what you just said about an intention is providing some space to just think about what's important to you. And a practice that has become so important to me. It's always been in my life, but over the last couple of years, as we've been through this adventure, has become probably the most important thing for me on a daily basis. Is I have a moment of quiet in the mornings where I sit at my desk. I clear the entire desk off, and all I have in front of me is my journal. And before I start writing in my journal, I just take a quiet moment to try to do a little bit of breathing exercise, just try to get quiet and get present. And then the words kind of fall out of my mind onto the paper. And that process for me has really helped me to set that intention, because that helps ground me into what really is important to me and what I'm chasing. And it sets aside the past, the worry of, was I good enough, or did I do well enough in the past, or am I headed the right direction? All that matters right then is what's in the present. And that's where my intentionality comes from.
Hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. Also, on the flip side, some critics would argue that taking risks is a privilege that not everyone can afford. So, how do you address this perspective, Adam? Especially when financial or social constraints might make bold moves more challenging for certain individuals?
Oh, I have thought a lot about that, and I certainly acknowledge the luck of where I was born and the situations that I found myself in. For sure, that's been part of my thought process, and even just the time that we're born. Like 50 years ago, we talked about that quite a bit. Is 50 years ago or 100 years ago, doing what we did with 4 kids would not have been possible to even plan, but two, plan to come home with all 4 kids. That it probably wouldn't have happened.
True, true.
And so, um, while acknowledging that, I think that not every bit of risk, every bit of adventure has to be so big, and I don't think it needs. I really don't think it needs to be. I've had a few friends that have, just on a real simple basis, to say, I could never do what you did. That's too stressful. That's that's just too big of a thing that I just wouldn't work. And I've thought about that, because I wouldn't recommend that you do that then. If you have big dreams to do something like that, I sure think you can take steps. But for someone else, their risk might look very different. Their risk might be asking for the promotion, or taking a shot at a job that pays a little bit better, or moving across town to move, to just try to improve your situation. And so while my dream was kind of big, and it was a big adventure, it hasn't always been that. I've made little moves across, throughout my life that have felt really risky at the moment, and have provided some kind of progress. But I really think it can start really small, and be just as rewarding as, a big global trip with 4 kids.
Great, great. Also, Adam, before we wrap up this conversation, um, for those of us who aren't quite ready to travel the world or make a career shift, how can we start embracing discomfort and risk in, smaller, manageable ways in our day-to-day lives?
I think it's risky to be intentional, because
Mm,
um, because that might not fit the mold of what society or family or culture norms want you to do. And so for me, um, taking that quiet time, I am lucky enough again to live in a very beautiful place in the mountains of Utah. And
mm,
for me, taking a walk or a bike ride up in the mountains has always been a place to clear my mind. My journal, my journal practice has been very beneficial. On our trip, we were fortunate enough for the first time in my life, to be around beaches and oceans a lot. And I found that same place to kind of get quiet and contemplate. I think everyone can do that. And giving ourselves that space. I know I'm kind of repetitive here, but my suggestion to anyone who wants to be a little more intentional or wants to find a way to dream and what it is they really want out of life, I think that my recommendation to everybody would be to find a place to get quiet and ask those questions. If you're only living in a place of what am I supposed to do, or who am I supposed to be, or what do I have to do, I think that you end up probably with some regret at the end of your life, because you've kind of tried to fit inside of a box instead of, I don't know, create your own box, or creating your own intentional life.
Beautiful, beautiful. That is, I think, very relatable and makes sense. Um, so, of course, if our listeners they wish to connect with you and explore more about, enhancing their risk-taking appetite, and also, explore more about your journey, how they can do that.
Yeah, thanks so much for the question. The best place is probably just Instagram, where I've got a website that I blog a little bit and put some of our podcast interviews and some of our adventures on our YouTube channel. But just adamstewart.com reaches everywhere there. Or it gives all the links out for those places.
Lovely. We'll have the details mentioned in the show notes. And Adam, thank you so much, for this inspiring conversation. I think from packing up your life to traveling the globe with your family, to embracing discomfort, to be as a catalyst for growth. I think your story is a powerful reminder for all of us that life's greatest rewards often come from its biggest risks. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. Have a good evening.
So, listeners, I hope you all are walking away with a renewed sense of courage and some actionable ideas to step out of your comfort zone, like Adam did. So, if you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who needs a little nudge to take their own leap of faith. And also, don't forget to refer to the show notes if you wish to connect with Adam. Until next time, this is your host, Sana, encouraging you to live mindfully and dream boldly. Thank you.